welcome to another JP's Chalk Talks. I have a special session today. Well, they're all special, and I keep saying that, but they really is special. So, number one, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everybody's safe and well. If you're not a subscriber to the channel yet on YouTube, please make sure you do subscribe and hit that subscribe button. It really does help. And when you share your comments and when you hit the like button, it really helps the algorithms with the YouTube community and how they these videos get promoted. If you're on Facebook, I also put those videos on Facebook when I do these Chalk Talk sessions. So make sure you visit there, and I'll put a link in the description for that. But primarily it's on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about SRT. Now, I did a previous conversation with Suso from Haivision talking about the Safe Reliable Transport Protocol, big term, but and I don't want to overcomplicate it, but essentially what it is a way of securing and transporting the stream in a more efficient manner. And we talked about the alliance, we talked about the technology and how that works. Today we're going to talk about the mobile components of that with GlobalM, and basically talk about being able to scale using one of these devices right here, right? And I'm going to let Lance and Paul jump into that. So I'm very excited to have them here. They're in one of my favorite areas of the world in Geneva. And so I'm excited to be able to talk with them this morning and just discuss a little bit about their company and where we're going. And we're going to talk about SRT and kind of where it's scaling. And they're going to give some examples of, I'll save it for them, but with the European Film Awards, and talk about how things started and kind of where they ended up. So let's go ahead and bring them in. Hey, Lance, Paul, how you doing?
Morning, John.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too again. Yes, we had some technical difficulties with an internet browser, and unfortunately, our first recording didn't go as planned as I wanted it to. So we're doing this part two. That's okay. All right, that's the beauty of being able to hit the reset button and get ourselves recalibrated. So, hey guys, thank you for taking the time. I know you got a lot on your schedule. We're just coming out of CES 2021, and I think kind of this episode 2 is a little bit of a highlight of your participation in that activity, in that event. Maybe take a moment, either Paul or Lance, share a little bit about your roles at GlobalM, and a little bit about the background and history of the company, and maybe your own experience.
Well, I'm Lance, and I'm the co-founder and CEO, together with Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul, CTO and co-founder with Lance.
So Paul and I actually have known each other for quite some time, and we worked together for 12 years at the European Broadcasting Union there at Eurovision.
Oh, terrific. So you guys have got the broadcasting experience. Now you've founded this new company called GlobalM. Maybe talk a little bit about the technology for a moment about, we as we kind of go into 2021, obviously, right, we're in with the mushroom growth, if you will, of video online and where things are going from a streaming perspective and productions and things such as that. One, you've got a great piece of technology that integrates with SRT, as I mentioned in the intro, but there was a big activity around the European Film Awards. And as we kind of scale these online videos, and we're talking about how we pull people in remotely, and we start looking at that, maybe I'll let you guys, either one of you, talk a little bit about that effort, about how the company is, where it's focused on, and some of the past efforts.
Well, John, I think we provide advanced professional streaming technology, and we do this, as you mentioned, using SRT. Mm-hmm. So we have the apps for the smartphones, we have the platform on the web, and we have the CDN, the Content Delivery Network.
Which is really key, right? Oh, Paul, go ahead.
It's okay. Anyway, so yeah, as Lance is saying about these three elements, they'll start from the beginning of the chain. So with the camera app, and with the camera app, what we do is we we are, in our app technology, we take in the raw frames directly from the image sensor, and then we process those via the hardware encoder.
Mm-hmm.
And then we synthesize the 27 megahertz clock on a consumer device like a phone to be able to then produce a professional transport stream. So it's an MPEG transport stream over SRT from the phone. So effectively what we're producing is a very high quality professional transport stream from the phone. Then what happens is the phone's location service is sending its location endpoint to our orchestration system. And our orchestration system then knows to start the streaming gateway for the ingest part or the ingress part as close to that phone as possible. So if we currently have 8 points of presence on our network globally. So if we're starting up the stream in Southeast Asia somewhere, it starts up in Singapore. If we're starting it up in Central Europe, it starts up in Frankfurt. You get the idea. So our gateway technology is a distributed gateway technology. So we're using edge nodes, or we call them pods in our system. So the pod stream receiver starts up, receiving the stream from the phone. And then we start up a stream sender. Let's say it's in the east coast of America. We start that up in Virginia. If it's in the West Coast, we start that up in California. So if you're receiving it there in LA, you're going to receive it from the California node.
Now,
and we
Paul,
and
go
we
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, mate. We scale these up as well, so we can take that from a stream receiver to multiple stream senders, and that then allows us to be able to take on more and more takers. Each taker of the stream gets their own unique SRT URI, and the phone app is configured automatically with its stream URI directly from the orchestration system. So as a streaming app for SRT, it's as simple as opening it, pushing the button, and you're streaming.
That's pretty cool. I think that, we've had a couple conversations about the technology and its integration primarily with the iPhone and those devices or an iPad, and knowing that, Apple's kind of integrated, higher caliber camera. As we talk about those, you mentioned those different geolocations. I think sometimes what comes up with the technology is, okay, we've got the device where we have the ability to do this because of the challenges we're dealing with the pandemic and the circumstances that we're in at a global level. The real-time interaction comes up, right? What does that look like in terms of the latency, right? And you and I talked a little bit about that the other day. Can you maybe just touch on that a little bit about, because I think some people think about like, well, is it more, is it closer than a phone call? So, as an example, right?
Yeah, well, the ITU recommendation is 350 milliseconds for latency within a phone call before you start to feel the difference. So, if we're talking, 50 to 80 milliseconds within our own continent, like within Europe where we are, that's really low. Between the US and Europe, we're looking around 200, 250 milliseconds of latency. The longest latencies we experience are going from our Sydney data center into Europe. We're looking at about 850, 900 milliseconds there, but that's a trip halfway around the world. That's
amazing. And I think, when we look at this and we know that we have the scale and the ability to reach, I think as part of, as Lance, as you mentioned, providing the CDN component, right? And Paul, as you mentioned, the edge connectivity, not only is it using the device, because I think some people say, well, is it just an app on the phone? No, it's actually, you even have a web interface to kind of manage the conduit of the streams coming in through it, where you could redirect that to another source into another part of the production elements. Is that correct?
The main management of the platform is the web application. So you log in via globalm.media. We have 3 different levels of user interaction. One is our own editor role, which we manage content with. The second is a media outlet role, which is customers who are media outlets who are consumers of media, either streams or on-demand assignments or whatever they are, that pay for content. That's their role. So they receive an account from us. We create those accounts and onboard them. The third, if you sign up just via the application, you automatically receive a reporter account. And that allows you to be, if you want to say, like a citizen/freelance reporter in the platform. And you can download the app, create your profile, and then media outlets that are signed up can see where you are on the map. A little bit like Uber, if you want to think. A media outlet needs to find a freelance reporter somewhere close to the action. They can, on the dashboard of the application, type in the location where they're looking for this reporter, see who's on the map, who's close by, offer them a direct assignment. They can put out a tender and geofence that assignment as well. Or they can use the application with their own reporters. So it's allowing the media outlet to really expand their reach for being able to gather content quickly.
That's fantastic. So, and I think people, when we talk, and for everybody that will be watching this, we're taking these devices, and as Paul and Lance showed me, it's like a little Manfrotto stand. You have a little MV88 Plus microphone that you can plug into an iPhone, right? So this is not only is it taking the phone, but the actual form factor itself in the field, and somebody that you mentioned, like a reporter or a journalist and other applications, it really has it extends the capability without a lot of overhead to a certain extent, right? While focusing on the broadcast quality, the overall experience, and quality of service, right? Which is what really we're trying to make sure and manage and provide the right level of, for whoever may be watching, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So you, with CES 2021, you guys made some announcements, talked a little bit about some things that are coming up. But an example of your technology, before we jump into that, either way we can go into this, is that you mentioned that when people talk about, okay, well, how would this technology, what type of environment, what would be an example? You mentioned, I think, in the press release and some other recent activity about the European Film Awards and how it started in 2019 and then in 2020, obviously just, grew. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
Sure. I mean, we've all been watching live coverage, either on the small screen or on the big screen, and we've seen video pixelating, freezing, sometimes a loss of signal altogether. Well, the European Film Academy didn't want to take that risk when they learned that Antonio Banderas couldn't travel to Berlin for the ceremony. So they asked GlobalM to help. We got in touch with Antonio's assistant, who downloaded the app and was streaming with a couple of clicks. Then during the ceremony, Antonio won European Actor 2019 and was able to give his acceptance speech live in broadcast quality from the iPhone using the GlobalM app and network from Malaga, Spain. And we were streaming to him as well in very low latency, the live signal from Berlin, and he was streaming back to us in Berlin. So it was Q&A, it was the acceptance speech, and it was really very high quality, good on the big screens in the theater in Berlin, and also for the rights holders broadcast. So just this last December, so about 4 weeks ago, we were back in Berlin, and this time it was more than 40 live streams using SRT and the GlobalM app. Each of the nominees was sent an iPhone 11 with a little Mojo kit, so a microphone, there was a little light, there was earpiece, there was a stand, and we actually lined them up so they were all ready to come live into the broadcast, and they were all 40 plus on the big screens at the beginning, parts of the ceremony, and at the end as well, in really, really high quality, and that was amazing to see.
That's fantastic. I think that kind of just gives an example of when we talk about this, and obviously there's a lot of challenges behind the scenes, as we all know, from a production and the backstage environment when you're managing that size of that effort, and then it is putting that into perspective. With CES 2021, is there any changes and developments that you guys are kind of looking at going forward in terms of this year on where the technology is?
I think there's no doubt that there is a major increase in remote productions. And I think also the real trend in the new normal is virtual events and increasingly hybrid events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a roadmap for 2021 ahead of us as well, with a lot of new features that are coming to the application. So we are looking towards post-COVID, and post-COVID, I think that this idea of remote working now has become the new norm. And applications that are like video conferencing applications that are being used on major networks right now is like, if you don't know what to do what you know kind of thing. Screen capturing and trying to crop out, and then losing resolution and putting that on air. It doesn't look great. The audio is awful. It loses lip sync often. And we're providing a system that really allows, one of the new features we've brought on in December is it was what we call SRT caller. So you can create a caller link. You just send, like you do with a WebRTC link, you can send the link. They tap the link. What it does is it pulls the app from the App Store and then uses the token within that link to open up the streaming session. So if you've got a politician or a celebrity or anybody that's joining, a commentator that's joining your production, it's as easy as sending them a link like it is for any other video web conferencing system, tapping that link, and it'll just work for them. And that feature, I think, will be really, really well sought after because it's giving you the SRT quality. It's giving you the quality of a professional broadcast system with very low latency. We have the return vision, so you can have the return vision coming back. You can have the earpiece on, so you've got the mix minus coming back in the ear. And so it's really a great tool now for the next step in this hybrid, currently with COVID and post-COVID world we're going to be living in.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Okay, we're going to do a part 2. So I'm going to leave everybody on the edge for a moment. Paul and I and Lance, we're going to regroup. We're going to do a part 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically do a deep dive, right? And for those who've seen my videos, I kind of jump into it because I think there's kind of the introduction and there's kind of the deeper overview of the product and the solution. How would this work? What does it look like? Paul can walk us through that. And share and kind of give us an example of what that would be. So stay tuned. We're going to do a part 2. And I want to thank Lance and Paul for their time today. And appreciate all that they're doing and what they're contributing as part of the overall broader community, because I think it's exciting to see how these technologies from a live streaming production and some of the engineering behind the scenes is coming together. Right. And I think we can be excited about the opportunity that, we won't have the easy button, but we'll at least get to the point where we can make it more efficient and give us greater levels of scale and resiliency. So everybody stay safe, stay well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, John.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
guys. You got it. Thank you.